Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Cyrus Webb Presents. I am your host, Cyrus Webb. I'm going to go ahead and connect with our friends over on Instagram. We appreciate you guys joining us on Facebook, on LinkedIn, YouTube, X, and our friends on IG. Glad you all could be with us for a very special guest that's returning with us. Chris Collier, someone who's multi-hyphenated. He's someone who is an author. He's a motivational speaker. He's a coach. He's also a media personality. We're going to talk to him about some of those things today and how he's been able to use his gifts to not only to inspire and educate others, but also to motivate them as well. He has some great projects that are coming up, as well as, of course, some events you all can be a part of. We will let you guys know about that, as well as how you can stay connected with him. But Chris, welcome back to the broadcast, man.
It's always my pleasure, Cyrus. Glad to be on with you.
Well, look, I appreciate that. Look, you're so used to hosting, you just welcome everyone.
Yeah. I almost welcome you to your own show, Cyrus.
I know, right? Well, thank you. I feel welcome. So thank you so much for that. So, Chris, you are someone who is able to do a lot of things, right? As I mentioned, just ticked off some of them. What has it been like for you? Because I know for you, pouring into others and serving others is a big part of your platform. What has it been like for you to use your platform to not only to do that, but also to remind people of what's possible as well?
You know, that is an awesome question. And it's something that I think everyone's born into their family and into their situation, into everything they went through for a reason. Mm-hmm. And because I'm the eldest in my family and I could use that to rule over other people, I learned quickly because of the way my parents raised us. You're supposed to serve. It's your duty. It's your honor. It's your privilege. And, I just want people to become the best version of themselves they could possibly be. And sometimes it's a real burden. Like it's really a burden because you want to help a lot of people.
Right.
And you don't know how to reach them where they are necessarily. So I take it, I am a very humorous person. I love to laugh, but also that's why I have to have that because the burden's so great. So I love touching people's lives, like helping them, because I think everyone should always want to be better than what they are. I'm not in competition with you. We both have podcasts. I'm not in competition with you. I'm in competition with me. I got to make my podcast better than it was yesterday. Yeah. You've got to make yours better than it was yesterday. I know people like rankings and things, but at the end of the day, you're just going against you at the end of the day.
Yeah. Such a great point. We have one of our CMG family members, Tanya White, is joining us while she's in Vegas right now. Tanya, hello to you over there on IG. ESP Presents, hello to you over there on IG as well. Ellen says, see, he is like me. Don't start, Cyrus. I do understand when you're on the other side. Yeah, when you're used to hosting, it's sometimes, it's hard to get out of that habit of welcoming people in. But, Chris, I love what you said. And I love the fact, the transparency of talking about the burden, because what we do, we make it look easy. Ellen, Tanya included, and others that are watching us, I see over there on YouTube. We make it look somewhat easy, I guess, because we're willing to show up. But showing up is not easy in itself. I want to ask you a more personal question. What helps you to show up for you? Because I think what you said is so key in realizing that you have gifts, but there are a lot of people who have gifts that don't use them. What is it that motivates you to even show up to showcase your gifts?
Well, there's several things, Cyrus. I mean, let's take a look at, like I mentioned, my parents, my family. Mm-hmm. I grew up with a dad that was a workaholic, right? So he always showed up for the family. His way of showing love, that's just, he was abusive in the sense he was never home. No, he showed his love by his work ethic, right? Yeah. So that's all he knew, right? Yeah. And my mom showed us love by staying home and taking care of us. That's the kind of family we had growing up. But like, there's been so many people, even like you, Cyrus, we're friends outside of doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I can't let you down by not showing up. It's not just what I do for myself. I realize that I owe a debt that I can never repay to people who gave, they always talk about paying it forward, but they don't talk about the debt you owe to the people who paid it forward to you. If someone gives you $1 million and says, go spend this wisely, you owe it to them to do right by that money. And there's been more and more invested in each of us, in myself, mainly because that's what we're talking about right now, that I owe to pay it forward. So I have to show up. I can't afford not to show up because one day, depending on what you believe, I believe I'll be in front of the great judge, and he will judge whether I did things righteously or not.
Yeah. I love that. And I love that level of accountability. Ellen says, help is so amazing. It's one of my gifts too, Ellen. I agree with that. And I think that is what is so, and what we're talking about today, Chris, kind of really ties in, which is why I want to kind of lay that groundwork for those who may just be introduced to you, because whether we're talking about your work as a coach, as a media personality, as an author, as I mentioned, and then of course, brand strategist, being able to help people with what they're doing with YouTube. We're going to be talking a bit about that. You've been able to find different types of people to be able to help. With your busy schedule, how do you balance it? Because I think all of us, and you and I were talking before we went live here, all of us have our own challenges. And part of that challenge is how we choose to spend the gift of the 24 hours that we have. Talk to us about what that's been like for you to be able to take your gifts, to lay them out in front, and decide how you're going to use them, Chris.
Well, I think balance is a misnomer.
Okay.
I don't think there's such thing as balance.
Okay.
We spend so much of our early years in school, not knocking school or education,
Sure,
but we spend so much time in there. And then when we go into society, we work 40 plus hours a week. Well, there's no balance in that, but you want to talk about balancing in spending time building a business, or spending time with your grandkids or kids. There's no such thing as balance. I don't think so. My thing is put the hammer down hard and often, so you can build something that you can hopefully walk away from, or semi walk away from, or you can be blessed, super blessed like Cyrus, where you get to do what you love every day. You wake up and get to do it every day versus have to juggle things. So you just have to be dedicated to the process. And I realized that the more I fall in love with the process, the more that things change. I heard Jim Rohn say this: if you change, things will change. And I really think that's the key.
Did you always know that social media, though, was going to be a part of what you were building, Chris? I mean, there's still people in 2025 who are still bucking against it and don't see the value, even though it's literally right in front of us, as to how key it is. Did you always know that social media in some form was going to be a part of what you wanted to build?
No, Cyrus. When I was a kid, we had walkie-talkies, and the only reason why you could hear on them was because you were an earshot of the other person. We didn't have cell phones that you could go all over the world with, right?
Yeah.
We didn't have that. So, but once social media started taking off, I realized it was a bridge. Look, we are the rock stars of the 80s. We are the broadcasters of the 50s and 60s. That's what we do. At any point, millions of people could see us on this or any other platform.
Yeah. How does that, I mean, the fact that you said that, hey, Wendy, good to be to see you, Wendy Arcette over there on IG. You said that really resonated with me, Chris, because we know this, we know it, but how does that feel to know that literally any day that you pop on, that you can literally reach the world? How does that make you feel when you think about the way you share and what you share?
Well, it makes me do two things. It makes me want to keep showing up because I don't know which time.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if the one time you didn't show up was the one time that you were going to make it?
Yeah.
Or two is, I look back at my old recordings, and I don't do this often because I don't like hearing myself speak as much as other people do. I'm not enamored with myself. So when I go back and look, I'd be like, I said that. Ooh. And so, like, as you grow, you realize how little you did know previously. And that's in every area of life if you're really growing. So you always want to sharpen your axe. Like they asked Abraham Lincoln how he could cut down a tree. If they gave him an hour, he said, I spent a half hour sharpening my axe and 30 minutes cutting down the tree. Because if the blade ain't sharp, it's not going to do the right job. So we got to always feel like I'm on. I always, feel like I have to be ready because at any given moment, I get a phone call from you or some other media personality saying, "Hey, we really like your stuff. We need you on." So that's what we do. Yeah.
Ellen says, "Don't forget the beeper." I remember the beeper, Ellen. To be honest with you,
I was really dating myself. Free beeper.
Yeah.
We didn't have beepers. We had mom yelling out the front door, "It's time to come in!" Or if the light came on, you knew to go in.
Right. Yeah, and I think that is so interesting as you talk about that, Chris, because and I love the fact that you said about the what if. I don't think enough people think about the what if, Chris. I don't think they think about that by them not taking advantage of what is free for now that we're able to do, what they are missing out on. But that also is why, which is why you're here today, why people like you are there to help to guide, to instruct, and to motivate through your platforms. One of those ways is through what you've been able to do in helping people with YouTube. Now, YouTube in itself, and I've talked about this before, Chris, I think even with you, before 2024, I was not intentional at all about YouTube. I use YouTube basically as a storage unit for everything that I did. I had no plan, so I can't even lie to you and say I did. Now, going into 2024, because of some other projects I knew were coming this year, I started being more intentional about the way I use YouTube and really getting to know the platform, which I'm very big on. Anyone who's on a platform should learn the platform. When did you know YouTube is going to be one of your primary platforms? Because you've been able to build quite an audience there, Chris, and been able to help people now, of course, to know how they can navigate it. But when did you know YouTube was that platform you needed to do that on?
That's a good question. Well, I got into podcasting. So, and everyone was charging, like you, everyone was charging really crazy prices just to host your podcast. And some say, well, we didn't charge that much, but you didn't get much for what you got. They just housed your audio, and it wasn't sexy enough for me, or it wasn't, distributable enough for me or what I'd like. And so I just said, I'm gonna just use YouTube. That's what I put in, because it was free and you could do everything you needed to do. And then like just learning and understanding that you can have a podcast on YouTube. You can, it's Google's default favorite place for a search engine to go, right? It's the stepchild of Google. So when you do a search on Google, it wants to send you to YouTube. So it's favored, right? It'd be like if Amazon had a search engine, right? So it would favor the Amazon store. So, I mean, it just made sense. So that's when I realized, listen, I've got something powerful in my hands. I can help a lot of people get found, because it's right now, it's starting to change though. It's the best, most favored search engine.
Yeah. You mentioned the change. I think anyone who's been on social media over the past 6 months will see, hey, Fraser, going to be able to see you over there on IG. We'll notice that all the platforms seem to be going through a change, right? I know Instagram's announced changes. There's changes even on Facebook. One of the places where I'm streaming today. Is that part of the work that you feel is a responsibility of yours, Chris, to not only to be able to teach and help, but to stay current on those changes so you can be able to share the most up-to-date information?
That's a good question. Let me say this. It's kind of like, if I think we sent a picture out the other day and I got a lot of response on it about someone surfing, right? It was a video, someone surfing, and the surfing's a balancing act. I've never surfed, but I'm guessing there's a balancing act from the wave that's the water that's sitting there and the water that's being pressed to shore, right? So you've got the water, the platform that you're on, and you got what's coming, right? You got to stay on the edge so you can stay afloat on your board and not get knocked down by the wave. It's more difficult than it seems, but I don't want people to get overwhelmed by it either, because at the end of the day it's just like the job force right now, the workforce. Everything's changing. Things are getting automated. I was in a restaurant recently and the server was a robot.
Oh, wow.
And it came around to the table and the busboy was a robot. So the thing is you got to understand things are always changing. The only constant is change, and be stubborn enough to make a decision and stand on a platform, but be willing to move if times change. Like we thought we lost TikTok a few weeks ago. Didn't, but that's not promised it'll be here forever. I mean, who thought like when MySpace came out that it'd be gone, right? So at the end of the day we've got to understand that there were things before this, there'll be things after this. I mean, so just be ready to move. I mean, there's things on Web 3.0 that blow your socks off, but we're not ready for them as consumers.
Yeah, I'm not ready for anything new at this point. But I want to say for those who are just tuning in, welcome. You're watching Cyrus Webb Presents. We're simulcasting our broadcast today on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, X, and on Instagram. Chris Collier is back with us. You guys know him as a media personality. He's an author. He's a brand strategist and coach. We're talking with him about the journey, but also Chris has some great things we're about to get into to let you guys know how you can be a part of what Chris is doing. We're also going to share Chris's site with you guys so you can stay updated there. So, Chris, we want to talk about what's coming up. I was very excited when you told me, I mentioned in my title that you were an author. The book that you initially wrote was one that was very inspirational and motivational, but you're now getting ready to release not one, not two, but three books. Talk to us about what's coming and what sparked you to want to share what you've learned with YouTube now in book form.
Oh, I'd be glad to. The thing is I found out that people want to know how to do better on YouTube.
Mhm.
And so I typically just want to give something that's going to help them, right? I'm doing workshops from time to time, webinars where I train. And as I'm training, I realized some people don't have time to come or they don't know who I am. And sometimes they can find me in print better than they could. So we've structured it in a way where we can help people get viewers, right? Hook viewers, how to hook them into listening to what you have to say. Why should they stop? What's stopping them from scrolling? You know, we talk about doom scrolling, right? People just start scrolling and never stop. What stops them for your video? What was that? You know, what makes them come back and listen? What keeps them engaged? How do you do different things? And it's a little bit different for everybody because like a podcast like this, it's a little bit harder to come up with content that keeps people engaged unless you do some crazy, weird stuff like flash the lights and make all sorts of sounds. But what's the best ways you can keep people engaged? And what is the best way you can rank and use your thumbnail to attract the right people?
Love that. So talk to us about the books that are coming. You're going to be releasing them on Amazon in the future, but you're also going to be selling them directly as PDFs as well. Talk to us about each one of the three books, Chris.
Okay. You have the I'm sorry, I just drew a blank, Cyrus.
It's okay. It happens on it happens on live broadcast all the time.
So you have Traffic Tsunami, right? We talked about the first hour of explosion, title psychology, thumbnail domination, and the first 30 seconds. What hook are you going to use to get people to listen? And then how to keep them, right? Ways to engage, get engagement acceleration. Those are just some of the things we cover in Traffic Tsunami.
Okay.
And then we also have how to keep viewers hooked, right? And viewers hooked is just that. It's you got to prove out something that people are going to want to listen to. So you show the end results in the front, and then you go back into it. So you flash the success, and you go into why it happened, right? So people want to listen. Or there's the story hook. There's the problem hook. Retention triggers. So you could have voice and tone changes. You could have music in the background and it just stops. Quick cuts. All these things are helping people get hooked and stay hooked. And then lastly, you have the how to get viewers, right? There's different strategies to get viewers. Have a great title and a great thumbnail. Have people that you work with. So if we're doing this on YouTube and not going live, we could have our viewers go and post and engage with the viewers in the comments. These are just some basic things.
Yeah.
You have a 3-second rule, right? Human eye scans a certain pattern, and color psychology, emotion trigger points. There are pattern interrupts that you want to do because typically if someone's scrolling, Cyrus, they're scrolling down and they don't want to be interrupted. But when they do get interrupted, it's something that they want. They're willing to reach out and touch for it and click your link and click your video. And YouTube rewards you. One of the things about YouTube that I like is it is a monetization platform. It pays you. And the other thing I like about it is the longer someone stays with you, the more benefits you get. So the longer, like if you watch 3 of my videos at one sitting, it's better for me, and it also better for you because I'm giving you information that hopefully can change your life.
Right. I love that. And I love the fact too, as you were talking, Chris, I thought about, because for myself, this has always been my frustration. I'm not saying with you, I'm just saying in general. As someone who considers themselves I am teachable, but I'm also very simple. So I need things to be simple for me to be able to truly comprehend them so I can implement them. I love what you were talking about there, because it's not like you're trying to give us everything all at once. You're trying to help us basically take those steps. And I think that is what is missing. Do you think that is also why the trainings that you mentioned that you do are so important? Because they do kind of, a lot of times people just want to get to Z. They don't realize the things they need to do. A lot of times they just think about the upload. They don't think about the things they need to do before they upload. And I remember, Chris may not even think I paid attention to this, but even little things like, the file name, why that's important when you're doing uploads. Do you think those little things, Chris, are one of the reasons why people don't succeed? One, and that two, why people like you are so important to help us think about those things that we may miss.
I'm going to say something controversial here, Cyrus.
Okay.
I think the system is rigged, so it's hard for you to learn.
Okay.
Most of these teachers and gurus out here, no offense to anybody, unless you're one of them, they get a fire hose out and they try to drown you with all the information. Versus giving you step-by-step, simple information that you can get some low-hanging wins with and move forward. Mm-hmm. It's not always going to be that way. It's like getting back into shape, right? The first couple of days, you're not going to feel like it. Energy is going to be low. It really sucks. But after a while, you start getting that high of being in shape. Well, same with getting on YouTube or any platform and mastering it. It's not going to feel good right away, but you get a couple good wins under your belt and you get better. I think it's important that people get trained and trained properly how to use the platform, because I was reminded the other day I was posting on a platform and someone scolded me because I had a link in the description. There wasn't supposed to be a link. And I was like, oh, well, I didn't know there wasn't supposed to be a link. So, I didn't know. So the thing is just because I know YouTube doesn't mean I know all the other platforms. Yeah. So as you learn, guess what? You get better. And the thing is if like Sean Cannell's a really well-known YouTube guy, you go back and watch his first video from 2008, I'm sitting here laughing. But you watch his stuff now, it's almost like a movie. Like the stuff he puts out now is so clear, so well done that you don't see the comparison. But that was him, 2008. So you have to be willing to take steps. It's important to get the training. It's important to understand how things work. Because if you just shoot everywhere, you might hurt yourself.
Yeah. And to go along with what you're saying, and I totally agree with you on that, Chris, and I'm also a fan of Sean's. But I think he's also a great example of starting where you are. I think a lot of times people waste so much time because they're waiting to get the expensive camera. They're waiting to get all of this other stuff instead of starting where they are and growing from there. That's what I did. Started where I was. And, I remember when I was just on radio one day a week. That was it. I was drive to the station. Well, take a cab. I was going to take a cab to the station and do radio for 30 minutes. That's how I started. That's all I had at the time was a 30-minute show and then go home. But, we all have to start somewhere. And I love that. I love that you're making tools available, Chris, that people can get, whether we're talking about the PDFs or books that'll be on Amazon or your classes. So let's let our audience know then. And I appreciate you stopping by and taking out the time. For those who want to stay connected with you, want to find out more information about your show, Conquer with Chris, or even how they can work with you and what's coming up, what's the best way for them to do that, Chris?
They can hit me on any social platform at Chris Collier or Conquer with Chris. I'm pretty much everywhere. And then my blog is a good place to get good information. You can get good training there. Conquer with Chris /blog. That's my blog. It has my podcast in there. It has the different people that have been on and are on. And we're just going through, and we have a backlog because we just moved the blog. So we have a backlog of people. Cyrus has been on 2 or 3 times. So we got to get all these people updated, but we're working on it diligently. And there'll also be there forms there for you can sign up and go to training, get training. You can get the PDFs. You will buy them online here shortly.
Yeah. And I love this, and we're going to be linking this up for you guys as well. So make sure you guys are following conquerwithchris.com/blog so that you guys can stay connected. Chris, congratulations, man, on what's been a busy 2025 already for you, man. I'm glad to be able to have you back. I know Chris and I are also working together. He's part of our media group. I'm glad to serve as his publicist, so it's great working with him. He bosses me around, but I allow it. Queen Bianca. Chris, what are you laughing about?
Somebody help me. This guy's got me tied up in a room somewhere.
Queen Bianca going to be able to see you. But Chris, congratulations again. Looking forward to our next chat together, man.
Thank you.
All right. And we thank your audience for tuning in. Another great segment of Cyrus Webb Presents. Until next time, you all make it a great one. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.